Hello from me. Those who have not met before, my name's Emma. I'm the Chief Exec at SocEnv. And a huge welcome to our annual awards event in this fantastic building. So first of all, a couple of thank yous. A thank you to our sponsors today, E3P, and to Arup for hosting us, as I said, in this fantastic building. Without generous support of organisations and our sponsors, we would really struggle to make this event work. So a massive thank you to them. Before we get started, if you haven't already done so, there is a delegate pack which would have been emailed to you, or you can scan the QR code to view the pack, and it gives the agenda today, details of the speakers and the awards, including our very deserving Honorary Fellows.
Recording in progress.
And finalists. Excuse me. So I know many of you know about SocEnv and what we do. So I won't spend too much time on that. But if you're interested in finding out more about becoming a Chartered Environmentalist, although I've seen lots of badges already, so it's great to see you all, Registered Environmental Practitioner or Registered Environmental Technician, please speak to me or one of the team, and we'd be more than happy to help you out with that. So as we run through the agenda, I'm sure you'll start to understand a bit about who we are and what we do, and the fantastic registrants that I have the absolute privilege of representing and championing through the work at SocEnv. So let's start the evening off with a presentation focused on embedding sustainability into the economy with our 2025 Environmental Professional of the Year, Robbie Epsom.
Let me just interrupt. So I'm Dougal Driver. I'm the chair of the society for, well, no, I'm no longer the chair of the society because we elected a new one today. So, but I was the privilege of being chair when Robbie won his award last year. What's going to happen now is Robbie's going to give you a presentation, and then we want it to be really interactive. There's some challenges in this presentation, so please do get your questions ready. We're going to come and sit here at the front, and if you don't have any questions, I'll just pick on someone at random. So it's really important that you get your questions ready. Otherwise, it's end of term for me. So just really, I meant what I just said. Okay. So Robbie, over to you.
Thank you. Hi everyone, and I'm hoping by challenges he means I'm posing some challenges that we should be discussing, and hopefully I get through the slides without any challenges. But good to meet you all. My name's Robbie Epsom, and welcome to the SocEnv Awards 2026, and also with World Environment Day, which I believe is tomorrow, and the theme being climate change and really driving that real world action. I thought I'd talk about a topic which I'm particularly passionate about, having worked both on the consultancy side for half of my career and then spent the last 5 to 6 years in-house in the investment world. So they let us in. I'm a chemical engineer by background, and the investment world back in 2019 started to let scientists and engineers into the room. And so I'm hoping I can share a little bit of what I observed in there that will hopefully help us drive the change needed in regards to climate change at scale. Just a little bit about me, just to set the context and hopefully add some credibility to what I'm about to tell you. Last 5 years, I've been EMEA Head of Sustainability at CBRE Investment Management. I finished that in August last year and went independent, and I'll say a little bit more about that in a second. 11 years in sustainability advisory with roles at WSP, Ricardo, and Atkins. And then a year at Unilever at the very beginning of my career, which is really where I got the sustainability bug. So this was back in 2006-07 when they were looking at what they called vitality at the time, and that really evolved into a lot of the great work that Unilever drove across the economy. And like I said, technical foundation in chemical engineering. So I come at this from a detailed side. I chose chemical engineering because I wanted to go into environmental sustainability type work. And it felt like a logical one. I'm a logical person. It was mass and energy balance, and it felt at the systems level that's what we were trying to solve. And so that felt like the right one to tackle this problem. Why did I go independent? That's a really important question. Having been a consultant advising into major companies, major infrastructure projects, having been in-house, being on the procuring side of consultants, managing big consultancy programs, what I kept noticing is I didn't have that flexibility to maybe move at the pace that I wanted to move at. There was often agendas which comes whenever you put hundreds of thousands of people together in a corporate entity. And really what I wanted to do, having worked for 18 years in the corporate world, was to have a go from the outside, but not be completely independent. And so what I've launched And I've been able to do this largely because of artificial intelligence and the fact that it allows people like me with experience to work across multiple domains at pace. I appreciate there's sustainability challenges with AI as well, but there's also, I think, lots of potential for it to drive good. What I've done is I've pinched a model from the private equity world, which is the portfolio career. And so I'm working across multiple companies, from being an expert advisor on the Earthshot Prize, working in the philanthropy world for the Assemble Alliance, looking at getting philanthropic money to decarbonising the built environment. I've been seconded into an infrastructure investment manager. I'm chairing the CREM task force on energy use intensity and carbon intensity. I'm on an advisory board for a prop tech company, advisory partner for a solar company. So really spanning across all these silos. And what that allows me to do is really see what's working, what isn't working, by sitting across lots of different seats and allowing them to talk to each other and help unstick some of the barriers that just haven't that have been causing a lot of inaction. So quite a different view. It sort of puts me between consultancy and in-house. Unlike a consultant, I get to be in the room still when I'm in with my clients. I'm in investment committee meetings, in board meetings with them. And so it's a bit of a different thing, and it's a fine line, but I think it's working and it's helping me to drive positive change. I'm going to focus on the built environment because this is my passion. I went in-house back in 2020 at CBR Investment Management because I believe that the built environment is where the change needs to be. I see the built environment as the wrapper around all of human activity. We often talk about it as if it's a sector. I think that's misleading because every sector in our economy, whether it be heavy industry, manufacturing, whether it be the infrastructure that moves everything between it, it is all operating within buildings. And I believe if we can fix that wrapper, then we can almost fix a lot of what goes on the inside. So rather than tackling change person by person, home by home, office by office, I'd like to look at it at a systems level. And that's really powerful because I think when I moved into CBR Investment Management, like many of those large investment managers, they have billions of assets under management. Some of these organizations are literally managing virtual cities from a boardroom. And so the power through this world of finance to drive change, I think, is immense. And it's something as environmental professionals I don't think we are leveraging enough. And so what I want to talk about today is how that built environment wrapper around the human activity, our global economy, is shaped by what I call fictions. And I'm sure any of you who've read Yuval Harari's books will have heard this terminology as well. But the financial systems, government policies, and information economies that underpin or determine what gets built, how it operates, and who benefits, all of these things are fictional constructs, and understanding these fictions is key to unlocking, I think, the systems change that we're all trying to drive in our various domains. So I'm going to talk about the fiction of finance, the finance world. And to me, until I went in-house back in 2020, this was a world which was largely invisible unless you had a real interest in it. I'd often work on projects for buildings, but not think about what investment structure that building sat in, whether it be a fund, a REIT, or a debt structure, whatever it might be, and where those real levers of change sat to try and drive both the capital allocation, but also the things that we're all trying to do. So our economy runs on fictions, whether it be an investment fund, a corporate vehicle, a loan agreement, government budget, balance sheet, or even a corporation for that matter. These are basically promises written on a page. I want you just to sit with that for a second and think, what does that actually mean? This is words, language, KPIs, contractual mechanisms. And governments operate the same way. Policy, regulation, tax codes, building regulations, they're all language-based commitments that shape behavior at scale. And I think what's really important, and I don't want to get diverted too much by this, but I don't think I can do this presentation without mentioning it. There's a third fiction that's now emerged, which goes beyond finance, and that's the information economy, where big tech is extracting invisible value from entire populations with minimal tax or regulation, while the environmental and social cost grows. So I think that's also something which we need to wrap up in this conversation. And my message from that fiction of finance, is if sustainability does not appear as decision-grade information, both language KPIs, in our economic fictions, think IRR, WALT, EBITDA, all these financial acronyms, it simply doesn't exist in the world where transactions occur, where capital gets allocated. And what makes it even more complicated is that economy runs on value. Not the same values that many of us probably went into sustainability for, which might be driven by ethics and the right thing to do. The economy on the whole, and I appreciate there's always exceptions to any simplification like this, runs on value. And that is money spent to increase the value of something, and money spent to preserve the value of something, risk-driven. And if I translate that into the world I've been operating in for the last 5-6 years in the investment world for built environment, money spent to increase value might be things like capital expenditure on energy efficiency, electrification, renewables, things that might create a premium for the fund or an increase in the rental income for the tenant, for the landlord, unlocking preferential financing terms with a lender or future-proofing the assets and maybe ultimately increasing the disposal value of that building. Money spent to preserve value might be things like adapting investment to consider things like fiscal risk mitigation, so you're not having to spend capital expenditure unexpectedly during a hold of a building. It could be navigating regulatory compliance, so you're not getting reputational risk and losing customers, or avoiding brown discounts at disposal. So I think that sustainability, and I obviously include myself in this, was very heavily focused for the last decade or two on reporting. And that's been really, really important. But also the beliefs that got us here. They kept sustainability on the table, which has been so important. Particularly in 2019, it got sustainability into boardrooms for FTSE 100 companies and global equivalents. But they haven't quite yet got to the point where the system has been able to price that sustainability into these contractual mechanisms, these fictions of the economy. And now the work is to make it count, evidence, measurable, linked to financial value. So capital allocation acts on it the way it acts on any other commercial signal. And if I want to just draw this to an example, I think examples and real world case studies are probably the easiest way to explain the thinking. So when we look at building decarbonisation, how do we move from reporting to outcomes, to actually getting decarb embedded in the places, which means that you're going to get a phone call if you're someone that does whole life carbon assessments, if you're someone that's involved with producing low carbon materials, concrete, steel. How do we drive capital to shop for those solutions, to allocate it, to build it into their designs? We've been very good at what I call the 4 E's: energy efficiency, electrification, energy procurement, and embodied carbon. Very good at measuring it, very good at reporting it. We've not been good at embedding it into these financial fictions. And if I look at the first 3 there, they're the really powerful ones. The energy efficiency, electrification, energy procurement, that gives us a value point in the market. That's a zero emission building in the definition of the European Commission. So energy efficiency, what are we trying to achieve there? It's binary, right? We want it to be highly efficient. And there are definitions for that. Even though they're ambiguous and they're spread, 60 kilowatt hours per square meter per year for an office asset, Mediterranean climatic zone, it's either one side or the other of that. So there's something which the market can aim for. Electrification, you either switched off the gas or you haven't. The building is either fully electrified with highly efficient energy or it isn't. Energy procurement, what's left of that highly efficient, fully electric building? Are you procuring it from 100% on-site renewables or credible off-site renewables where you can't do it on-site? If those 3 things are true, you have a zero-emission building. That's a value point. And what we haven't been doing is building that into the place where the money then flows down the value chain. So if I give you an example of that, the investment world is very good at selling what they call value-add funds. Funds where they might buy an asset and they improve the value in some way. Historically, that would be to make sure that you're getting, as many of you will know, a tenant to potentially pay more money. It might have been things like a nice new facade. It might have been a complete new fit out. But now the market is starting to sell things like brown to green funds. And there's a structure for this, things called Article 8, Article 9, if any of you are familiar with the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation, lots of acronyms in the finance world as well. And what's really important is that there is a KPI that you can build into that fund. And if you stick it at the very top level, the portfolio placement memorandum, the investment management agreements, and you say, for this value add fund, we're going to launch a $2 billion fund. It's going to be full of brown assets. We're going to shop for brown assets. And we're going to make them green. You need a definition for that. Otherwise, you can't sell it. And if the definition exists, which it does, and for those of you familiar with the EU taxonomy, it defines these KPIs. A 30% reduction in primary energy demand is what the EU taxonomy considers to be green when it comes to improving energy efficiency. So if you sell a fund that says, as a red line minimum, if I take your investor capital, all the assets in this brown to green fund will achieve a minimum of 30% reduction in primary energy demand, and hopefully you set some contingency there so you know you can achieve it. You have now sold something which is a binding element of that contract, and that will feed down. That means that every time one of those buildings comes up for refurb, they're going to be looking for people that can do a whole life carbon assessment. They're going to be procuring low carbon materials. And they're not going to be measuring this because they are doing a CSR report. They're going to be measuring this because they're reporting to their investors who are asking for this because it was what they paid for and it's what they signed up for. And so that's one example of many. And I think building decarbonisation and actually to some extent climate adaptation into the fiction of finance, fund structure, debt term sheets, etc., is actually quite straightforward. It's mainly that we've been missing from the room to help them understand and define that. The challenge, I think, is how do we also do this with biodiversity, with social value, with all the other things that we're trying to drive. So what am I doing about it? Because one company doesn't change everything. And this is one of the case studies I talked about with the Society for the Environment. I tried to convene the market. So I worked with RICS, the IIGCC, and we launched something called Aligning Real Estate Sustainability Indicators, or RESI. And the premise of this was I didn't want anyone to pay for it. I wanted it to be open source, no membership paywalls, and fully collaborative. And we convened the valuation community, banks, lenders, investment managers, GPs, LPs, if you speak the language of the investment management world. And we tried to just say, how can we make this work so that the things that are already out there, things like SFDR, like EU taxonomy, like the Energy Performance Building Directive, all these things that already exist, how can we address some of the underlying ambiguity in that so that the investment world trusts it and is comfortable to build it into all these various financial constructs? And that worked pretty well. We got a lot of people together. We got a white paper out. We've just recently managed to convert some of that thinking into a book published only last month called ESG in Real Estate. And so we've made some progress. Have we got there? No, we're still not there yet because we are still a small number of us trying to change something that has happened a particular way for many hundreds of years. But maybe if I just give you some examples before I move on to my last couple of slides of where sustainability really bites in this world. What I've seen is fund mandates. I talked about getting it into the portfolio placement memorandum, the investment management agreements, the side letters. These are all the things that the investors really care about and will do if these KPIs, these promises, the language written on a page is done. But also loan covenants, the world of debt, sustainability-linked loans, revolving credit facilities, all these things. These guys are lending money. And if the lending term sheets, the debt covenants also say, we're only going to lend you this money if you achieve this. And we're seeing this come in. You're seeing an upside and a downside. I had no idea what the word BIPs meant when I first joined the investment world, but 5 bips, 5 bips up or down, effectively, more interest or less interest if you achieve or don't achieve the KPIs. These things are happening, and actually, it's evolving at pace. The debt world is moving to the point where it's actually becoming a prerequisite to accessing debt to make sure you're doing some of this stuff. But again, there's ambiguity, and so there's still friction. Acquisitions. If this is built into acquisition criteria, where do you think it's going to appear? It's going to appear in technical due diligence requirements alongside all the legacy TDD work. Green leases, making sure that the occupiers are signing up to this in their lease agreements, but also making sure that the property managers have this in their contracts so that they're managing the properties with these KPIs baked in as legally binding elements. And valuations, making sure that the valuation world is providing the evidence and the guidance of what the valuers need to provide to make sure there is an upside. Because even if we get everything else right, if this doesn't actually add value, they're still not going to do it. So we have to show how does it drive value. And it does. If you can get rooftop PV on an asset, on a logistics asset, quite often you can increase the rent, and there's evidence out there for that. But we've got to get the valuation community really showcasing that as well. And then lastly, things like carried interest, the incentives that drive the investment world. So it's not about reporting for reporting's sake. It's about sustainability as a commercial lever of change and making sure that all the things which we know how to do, the solutions we've got in our community, are featuring in the way that these guys are structuring it. And I'll finish on this last slide just to really show you that decarb's a good one. And this is why I've managed to probably leverage this the most. Decarbonisation is an economic certainty. And I can say that now that I'm independent, but I genuinely believe this. And why is that? Because fossil fuels are not a good invention. Anyone who looks at this knows that, that movement of, energy to kinetic energy with the things like the combustion engine, it's low efficiency. You look at a battery, and we forget about all the propaganda around things like batteries. Just look at the fundamental of the efficiency of energy to movement. It is a good technology, but also the volatility of the world at the moment, and I don't need to go into the detail of that, these things are problematic for businesses. And so electrification makes commercial sense. Renewables makes commercial sense. It is a economic certainty that fossil fuels will be faded out. The only question is when, how quickly, and with what technology. And so the investment world knows this. What they're challenging with is how do we make this part of their investment criteria so that it is considered alongside all their other commercial decisions. So just to wrap up, I think the call to action here is it is on us. And it's not easy to convince this world. This is a world that has operated this way for hundreds of years. If I were to give you 4 calls to action, 1 would be speak the language of value. Frame every sustainability initiative in terms of the value created or the value preserved. If you cannot articulate why it matters to an investment committee, to a lender or a board, then we need to rethink the framing, because we can't rely on everyone caring. There will be people that care, but we need to make this make economic sense. And the economic case exists. The challenge for us is to build it into that sort of structure. We need to demand decision-grade data, because none of this works if the data is ambiguous, full of holes. So we have to push for sustainability KPIs to have the same rigor as financial data. It needs to be transparent, auditable, comparable, contractually enforceable. Ambiguity is the enemy of action, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Financial data is not perfect, but they still manage to make very big decisions with financial data. We cannot be using lack of data as an excuse for sustainability to not feature. Embed, don't advise. Move sustainability from advisory sideline to contractual obligation. Fund mandates, loan covenants, purchase price agreements, green leases, contracts. These are the levers that drive the real world outcomes. So don't just deliver reports. Think about how you can then work with your clients, with your companies, to build this into the places which people then do. You know, contracts are followed on the whole, hopefully. And then lastly, and this is the kind of, slight sideline, I think we have to all engage with the information fiction. And this is a little bit of a sideline, but I genuinely believe that both environmental, social value professionals need to be part of the conversation on artificial intelligence. AI, big tech, extract data with minimal tax regulation. We have to address the environmental costs and the social impacts, energy, water, data mining, job displacement, inherent bias of the information economy. It is another fiction of our economy, the stories, the constructs we've shared, not just in human shared consciousness, but in AI shared consciousness now. And I think, like climate change, this is the next needle that needs threading. And I think sustainability professionals are very well placed to help thread that needle of ambiguity. So a little bit of a side thought, but also something which I wanted to include in the call to action. I will pause there.
I'm going to hide that. That's not my red wine. I wish it was. Kind of wish it was. Right, questions? Simon's hand I saw first. Simon at the back.
Yeah, hi. So as AI is the focus of so many decisions now, and is becoming increasingly the way that people make decisions, how can we, as environmental and sustainability professionals, try to influence what AI is telling decision makers?
Real quick.
Yeah, I think the best way with anything is to understand it yourself. So my advice is to actually use it. Yes, there are negative issues with AI, but there's also a huge amount of positive. Like with anything sustainability, it's never black and white. I think understanding how it works is the most important first step to then be able to have an opinion on where the grey areas are, what job losses look like. It's, one statistic, which from the energy perspective, UK's peak energy demand is about, I think, 49 gigawatts. I think the queue of energy requirements is about 51. So we're talking double UK peak demand, driven largely by things like hyperscale data centers, driven largely by the rise of artificial intelligence and data. So it's huge energy, water needs, but equally there is so much good. But I think if we as the sustainability community don't throw ourselves into this, understand how it works, the good and the bad, the risks and the positives, then we won't be able to have it a say.
Thank you. Sophie, 4 in. Gentleman 4 in, I think, from Simon, same row. Yeah. If you could take the microphone, please, and then I'll come to the lady here, and then I'll come.
Hi, thank you.
one of your fictions, I think, is land value or real estate value. I'm slightly worried that sustainability and sustainability performance measures can be used by business to add another kind of fictional bad behaviour on top of their financial activity. So if you take London, for example, where you've got very high land values, one of the things you see outside, which can be quite tough for those of us that are really concerned about the environment, is a constant churn of new buildings. You know, the amount of concrete that's poured in London every day is beyond belief, because they're seeing the additional value that's added, take a building like this, on the balance sheet, because it's a sustainable building. So it's net zero, it's BREEAM excellent, it's LEED, it's WELL, and then that goes on the balance sheet in the way that you've suggested, and that encourages further bad behaviour, and everybody else down the street then wants to replace their building with the same. And then you get another churn of buildings in a kind of 20-year life cycle, as opposed to 100 or 150 years of buildings. If you take this building, for example, it's a lovely building. There was probably one here before that was full of people sitting on laptops. It's still full of people sitting on laptops. Yes, it's a more sustainable building, but was it absolutely necessary? But because of the fiction of your balance sheet and the performance indicators of what a sustainable building would add value to that, does that not drive worse environmental sustainability behaviour as opposed to better behaviour?
Yeah. So I think firstly, valuation, definitely not one of the kind of fictions I meant. So valuation community is very key in proving the reality when you set up a fund structure. So if you're going to set up a brown to green and you achieve your 30% reduction in primary demand, if the valuation community doesn't recognise that there's been an increased value, it will get to the point where, well, we're not, you know, we haven't had that value add that we thought we would get at the sort of start of structuring that product. So I think the valuation community needs to be part of validating the KPI that's sold at the top end of a fund to make sure that it actually does come to fruition. So for example, at the moment, you know, what is a zero emission building worth? No one knows. It's like saying, what is a facade worth? There's no rule of thumb as such that can say a zero emission building in London is going to be worth this upside. But what the valuation community needs to do is be part of that story where they start to build anecdotal evidence that we've had something that's been completely refurbed, hopefully without a complete demolition, like your example, and it has led to an increase in the rent, and that's led to an increase in the fair value, and that meant the investment manager's management fee went up, and the disposal, you know, achieved what the value add set out to do. So that's the valuation community piece. You would have seen embodied carbon was the fourth on the 4Es. Absolutely key. I see embodied carbon like a debt that should be transacting through these different vehicles. So if you're going to knock a building down and someone else then comes in with a new development that might be hugely sustainable, that historic whole life carbon debt should be considered as part of that transaction. That, I think, is a way off. That's the sort of next step in the journey. We have the ability to do it, but just not in a transactional way yet, I don't think.
Picks up on something we were discussing earlier about the opposite of that would be the value of the stored carbon that we were talking about and we worked together on at the DFE. Okay, question there for you, Lenny.
Hi, Robbie. Is this on? Yeah. So, I mean, listening to you today, for anyone who doesn't know, when Robbie was at Atkins, he used to give us pensions advice, and I was probably about 23 or something. So it's taken me back to those days. I'm going to ask, you mentioned around the propaganda of batteries and how, you know, the move to electrification is like clearly better than obviously burning fossil fuels. How can we address, and I don't expect to have every answer, but the issue of actually all the raw, the minerals and the metals that need to go into batteries? Aren't we going to find ourselves in the same position in like 50 years' time? We've run out of all the resources.
Yeah, you'll know I was hugely into life cycle assessment and still am. It's a really important question. As an engineer, I believe in, you know, trying to solve things sort of incrementally. I think solving the energy piece is almost the key first step, making sure, you know, we're not wasting energy. So there's not loads of heat coming out of a battery on the whole. So the efficiency is really high. I think that's a big win. I think the next piece is around materials and recyclability, circular economy type thinking. But I do think that's solvable. You know, you can make these things close-ended. You can have take-back schemes. You're seeing in some countries they're experimenting with batteries being replaced by the original manufacturer. So I think there are things which we can do about that. And I believe that the impact will be less once we get that part of the economy up and running. But I think the main problem to solve was to take that reliance off the volatile fossil fuels, which have so many economic problems beyond just the environmental problems. And my observation has been that, like with an electric car, for example, I was told when I got mine, it's so expensive to run. Mine costs me £90 a year to fill up. It's obviously cheaper, but there's a miscommunication there.
Quickly, there's two of the questions before we have to
Okay, very quickly. Robbie, I'm curious about where you see the AI governance framework coming from. What body has the legitimacy and power to actually implement it? Because these companies are multinational, they can relocate to where a jurisdiction doesn't demand that kind of framework. So curious about where you see that emerging.
I'm only doing this because we're running out of time, so I'm going to go behind you first. So if you ask a question, you've got to remember all these three, Robbie.
All right. I'm glad that you left that slide up at the end, because to me, that language of value ties directly in with social impact. I spend a large portion of my daily work convincing companies and people about the value of registration. And essentially, that translates into, with this, you can trust me. How do you see that last piece there about that information fiction, where you say inherent bias of the, sorry, I'm losing the thread a little bit.
I get where you're going with it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you see that linking up, where it's people and trusted professionals that drive change? And how do we, I suppose, act as middleman to actually implement what you're talking about here?
That was a subject of debate at the SocEnv board earlier today.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. So it's interesting because it's all based on the current kind of capitalist market. And my question more is, like, right now as a sustainability consultant, we are doing a lot more in donut economics framework and new type of frameworks. And I'm just wondering, how do you envision, or what do you think would change with these frameworks, and how can we rather direct it towards that? And I know the contracts are not going to change right now, but we are trying to aim towards it. And if we start fitting everything in the current contracts, then how are we going to go towards the future? So that's more of a question, like, how do we push the economy while also change the fundamental of the economy as well?
Really big questions. On AI governance, I mean, it is a very complicated subject. My mind in just what's happened in the last 3 months, and without sounding like I've got an unhealthy relationship with AI, I probably spend 10 hours a day in AI models. Not because I'm chatting to ChatGPT, because AI is effectively the new operating system. I don't open up a spreadsheet anymore. AI gives me my spreadsheet after I've given it the instructions, and mostly it's 90% there. I then work in that spreadsheet with AI to edit the spreadsheet like I would with a graduate, which is terrifying because I don't need the graduates, which is another piece. So I think going back to the original question, I think no one knows yet. And I think only by using it can we start to work out what questions we need to be asking. Even just yesterday doing a research project, I learned all about network egress and how we've got serious data risks around hidden instructions within the web, which gets pulled in. So there's all sorts of things going on, and you only will learn this by doing. And I think the best way to do it is incrementally and slowly, organizations and individuals. The worst thing I think any individual company could do would be to just not engage, put in policies that say no AI is allowed. It's got to be, the use has got to be encouraged, but with guide rails that we gradually expand as we understand and learn more about what questions to ask.
Robbie, we're out of time. You've got to be real rapid
really
fire, otherwise.
On the information one, I think it's going to be too big to answer right now. I think it's a huge one, though. I think the only thing I'd say, which probably just gives everyone something to go and think about afterwards, the biggest transactions in the world right now are not financial transactions, they're information transactions. And just ask yourself how many things you get that you don't pay any money for. And so that, when we talk about the invisible world of finance, the invisible world of information is even more invisible. We are literally being mined country and individual level for value, which we are not really knowingly selling, and there's not even contractual mechanisms. On the capitalist question, I think sustainability people are not going to change capitalism, but I think as we start to build this in, what it does is it creates a new type of better capitalism, which hopefully starts to get to where we ultimately want to get to, and hopefully one which can wrap this new information transactional world into it as well.
Thank you. So just to pick up on the point there about the registrations as well, we talked about this today, as I mentioned. I think it's a fundamental role of the society and its members to actually underpin and link these things in. And I think the way that Robbie has taken us into sort of some of those different worlds and how they might operate and how they operate in the future shows us the way of how we've got to step outside the box and influence through other channels. So I really appreciate that underlying tone because it picks up on things we were talking about today, and SocEnv is working on a new strategy about to be launched. With that, we're out of time. Robbie, thank you very much.
Fantastic presentation. Congratulations again for last year's award. And thank you so much for coming along tonight, Robbie. So the winners, please take note, not a requirement, but we'd love to hear from you through our webinars, our podcasts, next year's event. So please do think about that. It would be fantastic. So I'm going to move on to some honorary fellowships. So through the award of honorary fellowships, the Society for the Environment recognises exceptional contributions made to protect and enhance our environment. Collectively, our honorary fellows represent a breadth of sectors and are all eminent and respected in their own right. Together, they have a powerful voice. And today, I am thrilled to announce that we have 4 new honorary fellowships that we're going to present. So we're going to do them in alphabetical by Christian name order. And our first honorary fellowship is Chartered Environmentalist Alistair Taylor. Alistair has a distinguished career in agricultural engineering and environmental education, culminating in leadership roles and active promotion of environmental professionalism. His work bridges education, industry, and environmental registration to advance environmental standards and recognition. And Alistair has been an absolute stalwart through our registration authority, where we work together to maintain and enhance those standards. And he's been a fantastic contributor to us through that over the years. So Alistair is unable to be with us today. He said he was in Malta, lucky Alistair. But he has provided us with a short acceptance video.
Which one's on this?
It's the one with the little ears. No.
Hello. I'm very sorry that I can't be with you in person today to receive this honorary fellowship, but I did want to record a few words and express my sincere thanks to those people who've been involved with the nomination and the citation, which I hope you've read. I first got involved with the Society for the Environment back in 2013, and at that time it was a very different organisation. Over the years, the change has been immense, and it has always been great to have been part of that journey. It wasn't always easy, though. I'd like to express my thanks to the various staff from the Society with whom I've worked over the years. It's been great fun, and I've made some really good friends for which I will always be grateful. I also wanted to reach out and express my thanks to all the volunteers with whom I have worked, whether that's on the Registration Authority or the Licence Review team, who I have led for the last 6 years as Chief Licence Reviewers. 6 years? Where's that gone? Underwriting all of this is my love of the environment in all of its shapes and forms. Although I'm an engineer by training, I'll never forget the important link between what I do as an engineer and the impact that makes on the environment. It's especially true for agricultural engineering, where land meets environment, meets soil, meets animals, and so on. Such an important industry. I was brought up on a family farm in Lincolnshire, right on the east coast. And I remember very well back in the 1960s, farming was very different. It was before the era of factory farming. And the farm was very, very diverse with wonderful animals, hares, foxes, water voles in the ditches, which are quite big across there, plus all the wonderful plants that we would see, and also the insects. So it was a big part of my childhood and something which has sort of stuck with me all my life and something I have a real love for. Somehow, all of this rubbed off on me, and my wife and I still own a 6-acre species-rich hay meadow across there in Lincolnshire, which we just keep because it's biodiverse. You must come and visit us. More than anything, though, I remain hugely committed to maintaining a safe, secure and biodiverse environment, not just for ourselves, but for the future generations as well. When I look at my younger self, I find it hard to believe the career opportunities I've enjoyed. It's been a privilege to have been involved with the Society and the broad range of stakeholders, who it has. So again, my huge thanks and appreciation for this honorary fellowship, and more than anything, I want to wish the Society the very best for the future. I do believe we're in a great place to shape that agenda. Onwards. Thank you.
The next award's in Alistair's field, by the sounds of it. Sounds fantastic. Might need better weather than we've had today. Okay. So next, I'm really delighted to present Honorary Fellowship to Chartered Environmentalist Carolyn Roberts. So Carolyn is a distinguished specialist in water resource management and science communication with a global academic and consultancy career. She served as a technical advisor on UK flood policy, expert witness in forensic hydrology cases, and class representative in major legal action against the water companies since 2024. Carolyn is recognised as a Fellow and Vice President of the Institution of Environmental Sciences, Master of the Worshipful Company of Water Conservators, a Chartered Environmentalist with numerous accolades. Carolyn is also a previous chair of SocEnv and has made some of the best YouTube videos I've ever seen. So please go and look her up on YouTube, some fantastic lectures that I know you will enjoy. I'm absolutely thrilled to present Honorary Fellowship to Carolyn Roberts.
I was staying with a friend last night, and as I came out of the door, she said, "You've got an acceptance speech, haven't you?" And I said, "Oh, no, I don't think. I wasn't expecting to have to do one." But thank you for the award. I want to just echo one or two of the themes that Robbie mentioned, because I've had a very diverse career from starting off with environmental science through consultancy, academia, and actually one of my former undergraduates is here. Where's she gone? Yeah, right at the back there. That's amazing, isn't it? I don't know how long ago that was. It was a very long time ago, I think. As I said, consultancy, government organisations, most recently legal work. And I think this kind of change is going to characterise everybody's career in future. We're seeing, as Robbie said, the rise of AI, how important that is. I'm a great believer in seizing opportunities. Some of my opportunities arose through being made redundant, twice in fact, but others just kind of arrived by happenstance. And I think that will happen to other people, even relatively senior people, as most people are in this room today. The one I would say I found most amusing was I was in a public inquiry, which is where I started doing consultancy work alongside academia, and a chap came up to me after I'd finished giving my evidence, and he said, "Do you know anything about bodies in rivers?" And I said, "Well, when I'm teaching my students, I used to drop one or two of them into the Severn with a life jacket on, and I never lost anybody. I don't know if you were one of them. But and then we would look at it's a wonderful way of teaching about fluid dynamics, really." And he said, "Oh, right." And then he disappeared off. And the following day, I had a fax. Now, this is how long ago this was. And the fax said, "Ray our body in the river." It turned out to be in Thames Police. "Ray our body in the river. Number 1, when can you start? Number 2, how much will it cost? And number 3, do you need to know the weight of the body?" But the thing was, he hadn't actually asked me what it was that he wanted, or told me what he wanted me to do. So without really thinking much about it, I just said, "Oh yeah, I expect I could do that." And I think, you know, with young people particularly, I think we should encourage them to grab every last opportunity. I can see Robbie nodding, even those where people feel that perhaps they're not terribly well prepared for it, but they can see they've got something to offer. One of the constants in my career has been, well, first of all, probably the Institution of Environmental Sciences, and it's great that Adam's here today, but also that CEnv qualification, it has been absolutely crucial to me. It's a constant. It gives you external credibility, even when you change your career direction completely. And I think building in the sustainability approach into the Chartered Environmentalist, and in my case, it was mainly the science, but with the other dimensions as well, is just so important. So thank you for honouring me in this way, and I look forward to meeting some of the others.
Wish you dressed up now, don't you?
As I said, YouTube, you won't regret it. Okay. Now moving on to our next honorary fellowship, and this award is for Chartered Environmentalist Claire Wansbury. Claire is a highly experienced ecologist and leading expert in biodiversity net gain and natural capital with over 30 years of experience in sustainability and nature-based solutions. Claire played a pivotal role in advancing biodiversity net gain, including co-authoring key guidance and influencing legislation like the Environment Act in 2021. Claire's work spans international collaboration, advisory roles, and promoting interdisciplinary communication with ongoing engagement in improving industry best practice. Again, I'm absolutely honoured to present honorary fellowship to Claire Wansbury.
Thank you so much. It is an incredible honour. I will say 3 quick things. I apologise for not bringing a dog or a hay meadow with me, despite being an ecologist. The first thing I was reflecting on is in Robbie's talk, talking about getting climate onto the agenda in these financial decisions. And he touched at one point on the too difficult list that need to come later. And biodiversity is one of those. And we can't wait. And Robbie's agreeing with me, I can see. Our society, our economy, and that built environment is all underpinned and part of our natural environment. So there's so much to do. Getting it right on carbon for climate change, climate adaptation, working with nature on both of those, but also on stepping into a time of nature recovery. The second is why I love the Society for the Environment. Feel free to use this in adverts. I love its umbrella nature. I'm an ecologist. So for CEnv, of course, sustainability is the day job. Obviously, we'd be part of this. I love the fact that it covers institutes and brings people in from things like ICE, engineers. It gives somewhere for those who are passionate about the environment, but it also challenges all the others to say, this should be part of your day job as well. Why isn't it? And finally, if you read my citation, there's the list of things I've done. One of the paragraphs I really love within it is about the difference I've made, or tried to make, in the career of students, junior colleagues, colleagues at all levels, in their own career progression. And in the same way that our society and economy is embedded in nature, so our society and our economy and our financial decision makers, and goodness only knows our political decision makers, need more environmental professional advice. So the more we can all support the careers of others, that in itself can add so much to the weight of the difference we make as individuals. So thank you so much. It really is an honour.
Okay, and last but by absolutely no means least, we are awarding honorary fellowship to Mark Kibblewhite. Mark is an expert in environmental chemistry and soil science, with over 30 years of experience managing major projects across industry, academia and government. His work emphasises soil management and protection in the context of global environmental change. Mark has served as the IAGRI president and chaired key conferences on agricultural engineering and water management. Mark contributed extensively as a trustee and chair of the Dorset Wildlife Trust and supported young engineers through the Douglas Bomfield Trust. Please show your support for Mark Kibblewhite.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate this. Someone came into my office a long while ago and they said, we're thinking of something called the Society for the Environment, Mark, and we think you should be part of it. And I said, well, it sounds good. Tell me about it. And it was explained that there is a problem. There are a lot of people out there, it was said to me, who are providing expert advice, but are not expert. Yeah? And we need to find a way to badge those people who are really credible, who really have the knowledge, the experience to advise properly. So we're thinking if we could create this Society for the Environment and have something called the Chartered Environmentalist, that could be a gold standard. And I'm not sure, but I think I was registrant number 3.
We'll look you up later and I'll let you know.
I certainly in that first tranche, sorry, it went like this. We know you're okay, Mark, you can just come in. But the price is that you will now need to work hard to qualify the people. So for all those reasons, to be here with this group all those years later, I think 22 years later, is really wonderful. Thank you very much. Now, a few things, because I'm an old guy and I've got an opportunity now and I'm going to use it. Right. Number 1, I want to thank everybody who isn't here and who is here for supporting me through 4, 5 decades. Yeah? Inspirational people, people who acted as my mentor, many of them. And looking back now, I can see how generous people have been over many, many years in helping me to develop myself. I hope I've done the same for others. I hope you will do the same for others. That is an important part of the Society for the Environment. It's not just about saying, well, you've made the grade, you're in. It's about creating that cohort of people coming through behind us. So thank you, everybody who's helped me, and I'd implore you to do everything you can to support others for the future. And how important it is now, after all these years, it's actually more important than it was sat in Millbank Tower in 2002 or 3 or something, because there is so much misinformation out there, there's so much contested information out there, and it's absolutely incumbent on us as professionals to stand out without fear, speak truth to power where it's needed, and always ensure that we've got a strong science and technical basis to whatever we're putting out. Finally, I'd like to thank somebody who, when I was just 18 in Canada, said to me, I think you can do chemistry, aren't you, Mark? And I said, yes. And he said, well, I work for Environment Canada. I'm going to take you around my laboratory. So he took me into that laboratory and showed me all sorts of things. And thinking back how advanced it was, I don't know whether it's still operating. I fear things might have happened to it over the years. And from that moment, which is, I think, 1971, I've pretty much stayed in that space in various ways. So that's just a way of explaining any opportunity you get to take a young person and inspire them, grab it, and then we'll have many, many more members of the Society of the Environment. So thank you very much. It's just wonderful. Thank you. What does it actually say?
And not prompted at all, but we've talked about Chartered Environmentalists, which of course is incredibly important, but what you can see on the front is since those early days, we have different registers. So we have our practitioner register, we have our technician, and kind of coming up quickly is our entry level, where it's about really helping people who are coming into the career to have able to demonstrate the qualifications that they've got and then work towards that competence as well, because we fundamentally believe that professional bodies are a excellent career place for younger people to be as well. So that's what all those lovely signs made by my colleagues. So we're now going to move on to the annual awards. Move those out of the way. So this year we've got 2 awards to present. And again, we're celebrating the outstanding work of environmental professionals over the last 12 months. So I'm going to start with our Rising Star Award. So the Rising Star Award is aimed at those professionals who are working in their early environmental careers. And we receive a huge number of entries for the Rising Star Award. And our judges were impressed by the high quality of nominations. And the 6 finalists chosen for this award really stood out for their incredible work achieved in such a short amount of time. And we're really proud to have them as registrants and as finalists in this award as well. And I know that's really easy to say because we had lots of entries and it's really hard. But honestly, we worked the judging panel very hard this year. You gave them a really tough job, so thank you. I'm very grateful for that. Okay, so we're going to start first of all with highly commended finalists. This year we have 2 highly commended finalists for the Rising Star Award. Both are doing really impressive work in their respective fields and making a very deserving of this recognition. First, one of our highly commended finalists is already making a significant impact in Hong Kong through outstanding environmental work, so much so that the judges felt they could have easily been considered for the Environmental Professional of the Year category. Our second highly commended finalist has completed so many impressive things in their work, driving change at scale, which really stood out to the judges due to the wide multidisciplinary work that they are undertaking. So please put your hands together for the 2026 highly commended finalists, Chartered Environmentalist Charles Lamb and Rithmia Shinde. So Charles isn't with us, but Rithmia, I believe, is with us. Please come down. We won't make you do an acceptance speech unless you really want to. So, thank you. You want it the other way around? Yeah. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you.
I don't have an acceptance speech ready because I really didn't think I would be selected, but I just wanted to say I saw everybody in the nomination and I just think everybody's doing such a good work. And I think coming from a global background, I just feel environment is something which stands, the only thing I can feel about is global. And we all are doing our work towards it. So I think we all are winners here. Thank you. Yeah.
Very, very well said. Okay. So the winner for our Rising Star Award is making an outstanding impact early in their environmental career, working at the intersection of environmental science, nature, finance and corporate risk in just a short space of time. They've shown real leadership and an emergent and important area of work, helping organisations turn nature-related risk into practical actions, from supporting major restoration projects to contributing to national conservation on biodiversity and finance. Their achievements so far have been really impressive. They truly embody the spirit of the Rising Star Award, and we're very proud to present this award to them. So please put your hands together for Abigail Shepherd. Don't worry, I'll come to you.
Thank you very much.
So we have a trophy for Abigail and a certificate as well, but I'm not going to ask her to juggle both. Would you like to say anything?
Thank you. I didn't prepare anything, to be honest. I was not expecting this. I feel like a very small fish in a very big pond. So thank you to everyone here for being such an inspiration. I only started at WSP 2.5 years ago. Around about the same time, I think maybe the same week that the initial Task Force for Nature-Related Financial Disclosures guidance came out. And I said to my line manager at the time, what can I do to prepare for this role? I've never worked in consultancy before. How can I prepare? And he said, well, this guidance has just come out, so you can read it and then you can be, ahead of the rest of the team who don't have time to read it. So I was a bit keen. I read it cover to cover. And since then, it's kind of been a create your own role situation at WSP in nature advisory, which has been so exciting. I've done so many things spanning corporate kind of nature disclosure, but also nature finance, which is a really exciting new part of kind of the UK nature space. So I'm just really grateful to have been involved in everything. And yeah, thank you so much for this award. Thank you.
Congratulations there. Congratulations. Okay. So the Environmental Professional of the Year Award also gained incredible nominations, and we cannot be prouder of the outstanding environmental professionals who took the time to submit their nominations for this award. So this year we have two, again, highly commended finalists due to the high standard of the entries. Both these finalists have been working on outstanding projects and achieving a lot in very different industries. Our first highly commended finalist has worked in the TV and film industry, achieving a reduction on fuel used on TV sets, showing impact at scale and cross-sector work. Our second highly commended finalist has been working in the airport industry and has worked on a unique project to bring sustainability to the forefront of this airport. Both are leading by example, and we're proud to recognise them both with this recognition. So please put your hands together for Chartered Environmentalists Suzanne Dolan and Geraldine Badura. Congratulations. Would you like to say something? I'm going to be letting the side down if I didn't.
Where's Geraldine?
Unfortunately, she can't make it. We will make sure.
My homie. I just want to say thank you. It feels an honour to be in this room. I want to dedicate my award to all of those people that have been told it's not their place to challenge the system, to ask big questions, or to set new standards. So the people closest to the problems are often those that are ones that have got the best ideas on the solutions, but those are the people that often have the most difficulty in being heard. My career has been very much bottom up. It's only been more recently that I've stepped into the corporate space, and as the lady whose name escapes me, I'm very sorry, but spoke about redundancy impacts you and has impacted me in the last year. But what I would like to say is, for those that have got the resilience and the courage to keep going when you can see that there's a better way, this is to all of you as well. So thank you. And thank you to the Society for recognising my leadership, because leadership comes in all shapes and sizes. So thank you.
I'm loving your speeches tonight, so thank you very much for that. Very much appreciated. Okay, so now for the winner. The 2026 Environmental Professional of the Year has shown exceptional leadership in advancing sustainability, both at institutional and professional levels. As the first person to hold this role, they've developed an ambitious strategy for a carbon neutral, nature positive and healthy campus at one of Europe's leading universities for sustainable development. Their impact extends beyond their own organisation, including championing professional development, supporting Engineers Ireland to become the first organisation outside the UK licensed to award Chartered Environmentalist registration, and promote sustainability more widely through leadership and public engagement. We're proud to recognise their outstanding achievement through this award. Please put your hands together for the 2026 Environmental Professional of the Year, Dr. Richard Manton. Richard lives on the west coast of Ireland, and he's going to join us, hopefully, live on screen. Hey, fantastic.
Hello, Emma.
Hi, Richard. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Can I just check that you can hear and see me okay?
Yeah, we can hear and see you perfectly. So everybody else has made a little speech. No pressure, but would you like to say anything?
Well, first of all, hello from the west of Ireland. Look, really just to say that this is an absolutely massive honour. I'd really like to thank the judging panel and everyone in SocEnv. Of course, I should thank my own professional body, Engineers Ireland, and of course my colleagues at the University of Galway. As you mentioned in my bio, I first engaged with SocEnv, it was back around 4 years ago, Emma, where you may recall you visited us in Dublin. And really what I wanted to do there was to try to advance environmental competence in the engineering profession in Ireland. So as you reference, I'm very proud of the fact that Engineers Ireland then became the first body headquartered outside the UK to become licensed to award the Chartered Environmentalist title, and even more proud that we awarded our first Chartered Environmentalist just last year. And we've actually now had hundreds of members expressing an interest in applying. And maybe if I could just touch on one more thing, which I think Radima said, that we're in the midst of a global climate and biodiversity emergency. And I think in this context, international collaboration is extremely important, really reinforces for me the importance of collaboration on environmental education, competence, action, even professional registration. And it is great to see organisations like the Society for the Environment taking this up. So thank you again for this massive honour. I'm very sorry I can't be with you today, but I hope you all have a lovely evening, and I hope to get to meet you in person and to work with you into the future. So thank you again.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you. So a massive congratulations to all of our winners and finalists. Thank you so much for your leadership, for putting yourself forward. You really do help us champion environmental professionalism, to tell your story. It's a really big part of what we do, so I'm incredibly grateful for you doing that as well. So if you're a finalist, we've got certificates for you as well, so please come down and receive them at the table before getting a drink as well. So just before we finish, I'm going to hand over to Dougal. As he said to you, it's his last day with us as chair, and he's told me I'm not allowed to be nice to him today, so I'm going to hand over to Dougal for a few words.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I just wanted to reinforce this word here. Those of you who haven't heard me go on about this, I go on about it quite a lot. I was clearing out the garage last week, not very successfully. You know, when you go through those boxes and you find something and you think, well, I haven't looked at this for 4 years, and last time I looked at it, I'll put it back in the box, because when I look at it next time, I'll be able to throw it away. And you never do. And I found my forest craftsman certificate, and it was a little small pocket certificate in a laminated folder, and it was as good as the day it was given to me in 1984. And I opened it up, and it had a list of the things I'd done to achieve forest craftsman status. If you're not aware, I'm a CM through the Institute of Chartered Foresters, and it had tree felling, then it had advanced tree felling, and it had driving vans of a certain weight, and it had driving pickups, and it had clearing saws. And you think, why am I telling you this, and why am I holding this? I got a massive wood chip on my shoulder about how we can overlook technicians in terms of how we get to where we get to in this world, and solving all of these things that have been so eloquently spoken about by award winners and former winners. And I just want to leave you with a passionate plea to remember that it's the technicians that make things work. They are the ones that will solve the problems for you. And I got over my imposter syndrome a few years ago, but to stand down as chair today after serving the society at the level I've done, after really always through my life feeling like I'm a forest craftsman who can drive a pickup. I want you to remember that, these technicians will help you and they have no limits. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. So my very last duty is to congratulate all of our award winners and our honorary fellows and our finalists. Please come and join us for a drink just out there, and the Chancellor Network. So the space is available until 8:50. So please don't feel that you have to rush off, and make the most of this time. And again, thank you for coming and for your leadership, which is hugely appreciated. Thank you.